Welcome back to watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And the ease of doing business is not a general topic and everybody's concern, especially when we look at, how do we buffer some of those consequences of the reforms. And we've seen the president move to give that executive order withholding tax where small businesses are exempted. And that's just one of it. We hope to see the implementation of it. We had that conversation on Friday. I hope you did not miss that. If not, you can always go to our YouTube channel to watch that on Business Incorporated. But now let's take it further with the Director General of the Women Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture in Nigeria. She's the first. And this chamber is a couple of months old, so I'm glad. I think I'll be one of those putting you on TV as the DG, Mrs. Wayimi Eribo. Ms. Eribo, good morning, and do I say congratulations to you, first pioneer DG with the new chamber, speaking for the women and all of that.
Thank you, Ini. Good morning. Yes, indeed, congratulations will be good. Thank you.
All right, so now I'll start with you. Switching from being a geologist to speaking for women in business, I mean, what a gap. How are you going to cope? What's the plan?
I've been doing this already for a number of years, so the plan is already ongoing. I think it's just been an interesting transition, moving from core oil and gas now into entrepreneurship and really spearheading focus and support for women entrepreneurs. Maybe there's a book that will come out of that eventually. But of course, I started my career in oil and gas and had the opportunity to venture into the development space, where I saw some of the negative effects that women go through. And I think for me, coming into entrepreneurship at that time, I then realized that entrepreneurship is a tool in which we can use to accelerate women's economic empowerment. And really that's since then that I've really just thrown myself behind that. Also run businesses myself as well, but also thrown myself into the support end of women's entrepreneurship and financial inclusion to really just support women, because I believe very strongly that, with money in the hands of women, there's so much that we can do, and data speaks to that already. So I think for me, that's the transition, but it's definitely something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, I hope you look out for the men too, because these days it seems we have so many voices for the women and the men are being left out. So, I mean, let's not risk it, making the men endangered species. So, but I mean, at a time like this, we have a lot of chambers of commerce in Lagos State, national, and all of that. And these are not easy times to do business. I spoke to a woman over the weekend who I interviewed a couple of years ago. She had a bakery, so I called her to say, oh, I know you're now a big woman, and she said she opted out of doing business. So it's really not an easy time at this time. But I mean, I'm wondering, what's your plan as the chamber? What are you going to do differently? Because already we have a lot of chambers of commerce and associations and all of that. What's going to be different about you? What's your plan to drive these women's voices in business?
Thank you for that, Ini. I think for us, it was the chamber, this Women Chamber of Commerce has recently evolved out of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. Within that chamber, there was a women's trade group which existed, and this was created in 2005. But I think along the line, you do realize that it's extremely important within the chamber movement to give women the autonomy, to give their voices the autonomy within the chamber movement. And that's really why this chamber was created, to be very specific and curate support for women-owned businesses. The Chamber of Commerce, of course, so the structure is that for every Chamber of Commerce that already exists, we are working with those Chambers of Commerce. So we're not new in a sense, right? So there are about 71, 72 city-state chambers across the country. And within each Chamber of Commerce, there is a Women Chamber of Commerce in there already. So that's the structure. So we're not necessarily creating something new in a sense. We're just using this as an opportunity to curate strategic and specific support for women-owned businesses. Now, some of the pillars in which we work within the chamber is really four. There's the capacity building, and you cannot take away the importance of capacity building for women-owned businesses. In fact, for businesses in general. But of course, because the chamber is focused on women, the capacity building that we do will be focused specifically for women and women-owned businesses, right? And capacity building is wide. Capacity building across the skills to actually do business, across financial literacy, across leadership, across mentorship, across really just understanding the business side of things and ensuring that women are able to get curated support for that. There's also the access to finance. We do know that access to finance for women-owned businesses is a major deal. So we're intentionally curating support within that sphere, and really just seeking through the different alternatives of financing that could come to women-owned businesses. So we're looking at grants, we're looking at debts where possible, we're looking at investment, we're looking at equity, right? We're really just thinking through what are the ways in which we can financially support women to be able to grow and scale their businesses within Nigeria. And then, of course, market access. It's one thing to start a business, it's one thing to finance your business, but then you need customers, you need clients. So market access is extremely important to us, and this is one of the ways in which the Chambers of Commerce has been known, for across the world. It's not just, we're looking at market access not just locally, but also internationally as well. The chamber movement is a trusted movement, so across the world we can create market access opportunities for our women entrepreneurs through the Chambers of Commerce across the different countries. So that's one of the different things that we're bringing that not every other women support organization has. We have that leverage. Plus we also have the leverage of NACIMA. And if you've been watching very closely, currently NACIMA has been, spearheading a lot of advocacy and support for businesses across the country. So we also have the leverage of NACIMA. And then, of course, we will continue to put our voices to advocacy and policy dialogues where necessary to ensure that we're able to, advocate for enabling environments for women-owned businesses to thrive. So really, these are the four pillars in which we're currently working with to ensure that we're able to just intentionally curate support for women-owned businesses and give women-owned businesses within the organized private sector a voice, to ensure that we're actually bringing the right resources to them and we're exposing them on the right platforms and, just curating that intentional support for women-owned businesses. Yeah,
so you talked about access to finance. Your experience, I know you were once with a microfinance bank to create some of those packages for finance loan for women and all of that. What are some of the hurdles, to accessing fund? Well, I don't just want to say fund now because, you know what the interest rate is like in Nigeria, but accessing fund and the cost of fund. And how do you hope to, deal with that?
So I wasn't with a microfinance bank, but we partnered with a microfinance bank to create unique products and services for women-owned businesses. And I think I'd like to address this question from two folds. There's the issues from the banks in themselves, right? When a bank sets criteria for accessing loans or financing from them, but the voices on the table that are setting that criteria are not inclusive enough, you begin to find that the criteria that is being set is already excluding a number of people, and those are some of the issues that we saw. If you're asking for criteria for a particular kind of, if you're asking for collateral as criteria, or a particular kind of criteria, which is usually will be land, will be cars, will be, houses, you're already eliminating a number of women because not a lot of women can have those kind of requirements to be able to take those loans. If you're looking through the filling of the forms, the kind of questions that are being asked on the forms, you do realize that these are questions that are already eliminating women-owned businesses or women in general from accessing loans from the bank. So those are some of the issues that we saw and worked with this bank to be able to streamline these services a bit more to ensure that women had a bit more advantage, to be able to access those loans and were comfortable enough to access the financial institution to access the loans. If you look at it from the point of the women themselves, the first thing is the financial literacy. That is a huge gap, right? There's one thing to understand financing, but especially when it comes to your business, do you understand inventory management? Do you understand bookkeeping? So we saw quite a number of, we saw a huge gap in that area. And then there's also the point of women being very risk averse. They're not they don't necessarily want to take loans because they don't understand it. And because some of the times you've listened to somebody who's had a bad experience with their loans, there's the fear of, oh, I don't want loans, I don't want anybody to come and take my house or to come and take my, lock my shop up or anything. But it's really because there's no financial literacy. You don't understand that when you're taking loans, the loans must be going into something specifically in your business that has the capacity to bring that money back. Right? So those were some of the issues that we saw. And in curating the products and services that were in partnership with the bank, those are some of the things that we try to address. So in addition to getting the loans, there were incentives for women to take these loans. There were incentives for women to start saving, I think one of it at the time was if you save up to 3 months, it's a particular amount up to 3 months, you then get access to health insurance, right? So we set incentive across the different products. So there was a saving product and a loan product. So those were the things that we were really just thinking about. How do we ensure that as we're creating programs or products and services for women, we're intentional about doing it in such a way that women can have access to whatever it is that you're providing for them.
All right. Sounds like a whole lot you have to think and put together into one package. But you said you're doing this for the rest of your life. So we do wish you the very best, Director General of Women Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture in Nigeria. And thank God I'm a woman, so I can always call on you if I need any of those, any help in those areas.
Anytime.
Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Rini. Thank you.
Yeah.